opportunities came up, and I've always been one that if there's an opportunity there, take it, and figure it out.
Greetings. I'm Michael Murr, the Executive Director with CSED, the Center for Social Enterprise Development. We're a connector and capacity builder that champions social enterprise as a way to create stronger, more caring, and more sustainable communities. Social enterprises, in case you've not come across that term, are businesses and business activities that are being done for a community and social purpose. The goal of the podcast series is to explore how organizations are developing, launching, and growing successful social enterprises. And it's our hope that through these conversations, aspiring social entrepreneurs and existing social enterprise leaders will be able to gain advice, inspiration, and knowledge that they can then take back into their own operation. I'd like to thank the City of Ottawa for its financial support of our podcast series. Jamie, welcome to the show. We're delighted to have you with us. And Jamie Kwong is the Executive Director of the Ottawa Safety Council. And you've been the Executive Director for about 4 years. And the Safety Council is really a leader in road safety programs and services. Excited that you're with us and really looking forward to our conversation. And maybe we could start with just sort of an opener question, which is really around what is road safety in the council's perspective?
For sure. First off, thank you for inviting me to join you on this podcast. Yeah, we're kind of like Ottawa's best kept secret sometimes because people don't really know who we are. But as soon as I say, have you ever seen a crossing guard in Ottawa? They're like, yes, we love a crossing guard. They tell me a story right away about crossing guards. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's one of our main programs that are about keeping kids safe in school zones. However, we also are an authorized licensing body for the Ministry of Transportation for motorcycle riders. So people can come get their graduated licensing with the Ottawa Safety Council. And we've been doing it for now 57 years. Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
57
Just for
years.
motorcycles, 23 years for crossing guards across Ottawa and now in other cities, which we'll talk about soon, I'm sure. And then we do in school education and road safety. And so if you have kids or neighbors with kids, they might have taken some of our free educational programs if they're in JK to grade 6. And we teach basically basic skills on road safety.
Okay.
Hmm.
And so over the 57 years, how, what does road safety look like today in terms
For
of
sure.
is it dangerous for walkers and cyclists and motorcyclists?
For sure. And I think different time periods have different changes, right? I think post COVID, we see more people using active transportation, which is very interesting. So, more people on bikes. I think during COVID, people took up a lot of cycling. Motorcycle riders are out all season. So, they're a seasonal type of road user. People have different types of cars now, which pose different risks, but also different technological advances, too. I think right now we're looking at, in terms of Ottawa, we are a city that is very large geographically. So we don't necessarily have the public infrastructure there for public transit on mass. So there are a lot of people relying on cars. A lot of households are two-car households, and because of the nature of how our city's designed. And so I think for Ottawa, it's a really important conversation to have because more people do want to take up more active transportation. We're designing cities as 15-minute cities where things are walkable, people are using public transit. So we have to design our roads so that everyone who uses the roads are safer, right? And we're all road users in some capacity, even if you don't drive. So if you're a pedestrian, if you go walk your dog, if you take your child out to ride a bike, or if you ride a bike, if you love riding your motorcycle, these are all road users, and each one has a different level of vulnerability. And our
Mhm.
goal as a community, as an organization, is to protect the most vulnerable. And so sometimes we can't maybe make a huge overhaul in how a road's designed, and that's where it starts. But we can do other things that help mitigate risk. And so that's where we can start at the very basic level of the individual, teaching responsible road behaviors. And then the next level is, as an organization, what do we do to create a bigger impact through our services and programs? And then there's also sharing information with all levels of government. And the municipal level of government plays such a key role in designing our city and having that impact on our ability to navigate safely. And I think that's kind of, we are sometimes a facilitator of those conversations or a partner at committees, or a partner as a client. So we play different roles, but our goal is that everyone gets home safe no matter how they travel. And our role is to continue with programs and services that help make it safer for everyone.
Okay, so that's incredible, and I'm seeing really layers of services, and you
Hmm.
talked about really that starting with that individual and helping
Hmm.
them make sure that they can be safe as they're using the road,
Yeah,
and then you said organizationally, and then really at a city municipal level, thinking sort of systems
exactly.
level.
Exactly.
Is that where the safety council began in terms of that motorcycle training? Was that one of the really the
Was it
starting
early?
points for the organization?
Absolutely. I was digging through some archives of ours, and basically, road safety was always there. It was a small, much smaller organization, and then I guess they connected with some motorcycle enthusiasts, and then it started with a few purchases of bikes. Ottawa Safety Council partnered with a group who delivered motorcycle training,
Okay.
and basically that one training course developed now into I think we have five now.
Wow.
And even post COVID, right now we're at the numbers that we were before COVID, and we're teaching about 800. Yeah, every in the
800.
season. Yeah,
Okay,
in the
800 per
season.
season.
Yep,
Fantastic.
with volunteers. And so that's how so when we talk about social enterprise, we have our different services that are offered to different types of clients, fee for service payments too at the individual level. But basically our crossing guard programs are run by staff. Our motorcycle program is the only one in Canada that's run by a charity, run by volunteers. And our volunteers are dedicated, certified, heavily trained volunteers who just have a passion for road safety. And it's interesting, when I learned about our program, it dispelled all the myths I had about motorcycle riders,
Okay.
the culture, the community. It's so interesting because I look at our volunteers. Some of our volunteers, I don't know if any organization has had this, and I've worked at many charities and nonprofits. We have volunteers that have been with us for 40 years.
And so take me through, so Origin then started with really this motorcycle training, and then as I
Safety
understand it,
Village.
Safety
Yeah.
Village, right.
Yeah.
So tell me about the Safety Village.
And you're from Ottawa, right?
I'm not
Oh, you're
actually.
not?
No.
Anyone that's from Ottawa, they remember our safety village. And this is something that's been in the back of our head of something maybe we want to bring back at some point if we can make it feasible. And that's where we probably have to just get creative with how we might sustain it. But the safety village was there. It was a city owned infrastructure, from what I understand, on city owned land. So by Britannia, it unfortunately flooded. And then Ottawa Safety Council was the one operating it. So students would come in, learn about road safety through kind of this very experiential, like field trip, and then they go back to school. So remember when we had field trips more, and I
Yeah.
think they do, but maybe it's more elaborate, and maybe not just down to a local city beach, where there's like some road systems simulations. But I think that was such a great thing that basically it kind of led us down a trajectory, because then we kind of got known as like the school road safety group,
Hmm.
and we kind of happened upon being offered to deliver crossing guard services when the city wanted to outsource that. And so every city is very different, but a lot of cities maintain it in house. The crossing guard services, it kind of develops out of a need. It's a countermeasure for road safety in very vulnerable areas where there's vulnerable road users like children. And then larger cities now kind of outsource it. When a city gets big enough, it seems that's the natural progression. So Ottawa had this conversation about 23 years ago, and we were kind of like that organization that seemed to meet that ability. And if we didn't have it, we built it really quickly. I don't have, unfortunately, any staff that were around at that time, but the longest serving staff members of 15 years, they remember how it just kind of grew, like slowly, incrementally each year. And then we paired it with in school education. So not
Okay.
just the crossing guard at the intersection by the schools, but now going into schools, training the same individuals to teach road safety skills. And so my team has been doing amazing work on building up a curriculum, a road safety curriculum that's aligned with the ministry standards, and basically making sure that kids understand like how to be safer. And oftentimes they're the ones reteaching their parents on proper road
Mhm.
safety. Like, Mom, why aren't you putting on your seatbelt? Why are you speeding? Oh, you shouldn't use your phone. So they're amazing observers of behavior.
Mhm.
And we believe that road safety, first off, in the whole sector of road safety, there's a prevailing notion that most collisions are preventable. So 90% when they've done these studies all over. And one of the practices or kind of movements that we follow is Vision Zero, which started in Sweden. And if anyone's had the privilege of being in like different countries, you see how cities navigate road safety. And I had the option to go to Sweden this last year, and you really see it play out. You really see how every road user is a priority,
Mhm.
and there's safe passageways for everybody using the roads. There's
Yeah.
sidewalks that aren't blended with cycling lanes and pathways. They've built it so that the tramways have their own separate areas, but they've also built into a culture that people who are walking, who are cycling, are a priority. And you see buses stop, you see cars stop, and they give you so much room.
Mhm.
There's this priority of the vulnerable road user, and then Vision Zero basically started out of there, and this belief that we can prevent most road collisions.
Mhm. What does the service look like now? How
Yeah.
many crossing guards? How many
Yeah.
corners and intersections?
For sure, for sure. I think one of the first steps is say yes. Even if you can't do it, say
Okay.
yes. And eventually you learn how to do it. So we started at 22 and 23 years ago, and now we are at 301. It's like an odd number right now. And we have 301 intersections. And that means that there are two shifts there every day. So we have a minimum of 350 guards, but right now I think we have 380, just like so we have a
Okay.
good contingent of backup guards when our regular guard is unavailable, sickness, vacation,
Mhm.
and things like that. But basically, right now in Ottawa, we have about 380 people on our roster part time, and they're all these amazing individuals who how we recruit is we want people that care about the community because this isn't a job that is going to bring in enough to cover rent necessarily. It's not a full-time job. It's a very part-time, an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon.
Okay.
These are oftentimes our group when we surveyed, it's about 60% retirees, many of which were in the service industries, public servants, veterans, teachers,
Mhm.
and we have students. We've been recruiting more in students, and in the last few years, we've been heavily focusing on newcomers, and newcomers have been amazing. So we've been partnering with different from OCISO to World Skills to bring in individuals who are looking for some Canadian work experience, connecting to the community more, having some flexibility, and having a supportive employer. And so we're really, really proud that not only is our mandate to make our roads safer, but we are looking at how do we build the most inclusive, flexible, compassionate workforce that cares about the community. And
Mhm.
our best guards are the ones that just they love the community and safety of their kids. That's their kids. That's what they say. Their community is like the top priority. Yeah.
Is it difficult? Do you find it difficult filling positions?
I feel like our time period right now is separated by pre-COVID, post-COVID, during COVID, right? Definitely during COVID was such a struggle because we had the schools all shut down. We didn't have opportunities for crossing guards, so we had to do temporary layoffs. And then when everything started reopening, it was a slow build up again. Our attrition was super high because our group is if we just look at 60% of the retirees, they were often in the most vulnerable groups during COVID, right?
Mhm.
And so we had a lot of turnover then. Our attrition was super high. Recruitment was super hard. Being a service oriented organization, public facing, that was a very hard challenge. And then by 2022, it started to ramp up again. So our attrition levels reduced each year. And this year we started off in such a great position that we didn't have to do the public call out of help of we are short significant amount of guards, and the community delivers every time we've done a call out to the community for help. They deliver. Somebody refers somebody, oh my gosh, they're going to be a great guard. There's so many people that care about the community, and this is a channel, a way for them to channel that passion
Mhm.
and that interest. But right now our retention is really good, and that's where we focus is retaining our amazing crossing guards. Our community fights to keep these guards. They love that continuity. It's a member of their community. So there's an ownership on kind of both levels. Like guards feel very protective of their community, and the public loves to see their crossing guards. Yeah.
I love the model. I love the
Mhm.
picture that
Yeah.
you're describing for me. And if I think about Ottawa residents and retirees, as you
Yeah.
say, can be a
Yeah.
great opportunity for them, as
Hmm.
can new immigrants and
Yeah. New Canadians.
new
Yeah.
Canadians.
Yeah.
So I love that model. And so during this buildup, you're coming back from COVID, and really even just before COVID,
Yeah.
along comes this thought, I guess, to
Yeah.
say, should we be doing more
Yeah.
beyond the borders of the city of Ottawa proper? So
Absolutely.
take me to that
For sure.
2017 time period.
Yeah.
What's going on in terms of the Safety Council and your
Yeah.
thinking around its service territory?
Yeah, so I think the idea to expand outside of Ottawa has been there for many years, pre-COVID, and then it started off with us just at the fundamentals, revamping our bylaws. That kind of happened, and then with that, the incorporation. So the organization, the board, chose to incorporate federally. So that was kind of the first step of like thinking big. They didn't want to limit themselves within the province. They incorporated federally.
And so, Jamie, at to a certain point, you
Yeah.
were provincially incorporated,
Yeah.
and then you made that decision to move to a federal incorporation.
Exactly. Around 2019, the board had these major discussions on who is the Ottawa Safety Council. Do we only serve just within this area?
Mhm.
And that's where we started hearing about other cities kind of outsourcing the crossing guard programs. And we had already been delivering that significantly for quite a while. And so they incorporated nationally, even though it wasn't necessarily a priority to suddenly expand nationally.
Mhm.
But they started thinking about towns that were like they were monitoring the public procurement process on various cities. Toronto's came up in 2019, and then things were discussed, I would say, but and that dream was there, but it wasn't ready yet. And I think an organization, and this is why it's really important to have a board of directors, a group of advisors, essentially, because with everything exciting, there's risk, right? And so anything new and shiny, exciting, challenging could be a really exciting thing. I know for me, it would be. It's like, chase it, right? Can we do this? And that ability to pull it off from an idea to fruition. But I think an organization knows when it's in the right place. And thank goodness it didn't because that was 2019. If they had gotten everything that they wanted, suddenly we're in two cities and there's COVID. Yeah.
And so take us into the boardroom at that
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
and so what were the factors that were being thought about to say, are we ready or not?
For sure. I think the factors were capacity.
Mm,
Capacity is a very big one. And so when there's organizational, within every organization, there's always going to be a turnover.
mm,
If there's turnover in leadership or executive positions, it's especially hard for an organization because suddenly the direction is you have to just focus on maintaining until you have that proper leadership, I guess. And so the organization, like any organization, especially nonprofits, it goes through a turnover every 3, maybe 4 or 5 years of leadership or senior staff. And so around that time, it started to go through that. And then, not a bad thing, but more just a change in direction, change in board. But the idea was always there that maybe at this moment it wasn't feasible. But let's keep waiting. But then 2020 happened to all of us, and that's when everything had to just get pushed aside, and just focused on what is the most urgent for maintaining the organization and our programs and our staff, right? And so when schools shut down, there were some of our programs had to remain dormant until we knew what
mm,
was going on, and that included our in-school education. So our presenters, our coordinators,
mm,
those positions were on hold, and then our crossing guard program was on hold during the whole time when the schools were shut. And so the organization for 2020 was only focused really on that. And then I came in early 2022 when COVID was, schools were open, things were opening back up.
mm,
But when you shut things down to that extent in any organization, it takes quite a bit of time to ramp up to where it's like 70%, 80%, 90%
mhm.
before the incident. And so I would say like by end of 22, that's when it finally kind of um, stabilize itself as an organization, which gave me some room to kind of learn about the organization, spend a year just understanding it.
Mhm.
Our programs are so wide ranging, have so many people involved, have so many requirements of clients, of the
Mhm.
public, of our employees. And so for that first year, for me as the new ED of OSC, it was just learning
Mhm.
about the roles, the needs. And then the next year was we knew we had to do some RFPs. We knew that our contract was ending with our client, and then we knew that like any charity or any business or any individual, you have to diversify. You can't have all your eggs in one basket, and we did have all our eggs in one basket. So we just learned what happens when schools shut down. We just learned when we only have one major program and it's affected. I don't think anyone could have predicted 2020, but definitely having different revenue streams would be really important to the viability of any organization.
Okay, so it was really that sense that you needed to look at other RFP
Yep.
opportunities as a way to diversify, to reduce your
Yeah.
reliance on a single
Yeah.
client,
Yeah,
essentially.
exactly.
Okay.
And even when you're not actively looking, always having your eye on what's coming out in the sector that you're interested in, because you're seeing what people are tailoring in their RFP. What
Mhm.
are the things are must-haves? Do you not have those right now? Well, in the next few years that RFP is going to come up again. These are things you can get ready. And some of the things that we were getting ready for was technology. How do we use technology to better manage and operate our program? Because our program is 350 people dispersed all over, 300 people actively on a day. They're dispersed all over the city, a very geographically sprawled out city. There's no way to manage that program without technology. And up until 2017, we were just an Excel based organization. And
Okay.
Excel basically used at its like most basic level, I would say, of data entry. And so really in those few years between like 2017 to 2020, that was when there was some major changes with technology. How do we upgrade our scheduling system? How do we, as you grow as an organization, things get more complicated, but then you also get the benefit of more operating revenue to be able to invest in tools that will help you
Mhm.
grow as an organization and be more competitive and
Mhm.
efficient.
And
Yeah.
so today, of course, the topic du jour is artificial intelligence.
Oh boy.
Are you starting to see some early sense of how that could be impacting the business?
Ours is very much a people oriented
Mhm.
service. And so, in that sense, when everyone's kind of nervous, I'm excited that technology will maybe help us do what we do a little bit better. In terms of crossing guards, the whole service is built on a person, a trusted individual in the community. Can a robot in the future take over that? Yeah, but I think at that point we might have vehicles that just bypass the whole walking, like Wally, I
Right.
feel comes to mind when I see that future. In terms of, I think there will always be this need for people centric
Mhm.
services. And I feel very confident that this service is going to still be needed until the roads are absolutely safe.
Mhm.
So until we get those, everyone's car, make sure that they don't hit anybody. Like
Yeah.
until LiDAR and cameras are so good at reacting, we're always going to need school crossing guards as a countermeasure to create safer school zones.
Mhm.
So yeah.
And so if we go back to the City of Toronto RFP, and I think this would be really really interesting for listeners to understand. So you have a board, you're there as the new ED, you're getting your sense of the organization,
Hmm.
you've been monitoring RFPs
Yep.
and kind of the language, what they're looking for. So the City of Toronto comes out with another RFP,
Yep.
and how does it go this time?
This one was interesting because um, I knew about it coming down the line in September, but it wasn't even on my radar. My radar was more within the Ottawa region, Ottawa Valley. It's just small, and just incrementally grow. And then I remember talking to some staff members at the City of Toronto, and I was trying to share with them about social procurement. And I was like, they were looking to me for feedback on what they should put into their RFP, and I mentioned social procurement. Like it wasn't with any intention of actually bidding, but just that seemed like a very important thing every city can put in, especially for the service that has the ability to be creating employment for vulnerable groups or groups that have challenges in mainstream work environments.
Mhm.
Um, and then so it didn't get included, but at least it put like that RFP on my radar. And then on the ninth hour, it was basically my board was I gave a pro con list. Here's the pros and cons of if we bid. One, it will meet our objective of diversifying revenue should we win, but the board had no idea we'd win. They just saw it as an exercise, I would say. And I think for anybody, you have to assume you're not going to win, but you do it to learn.
Yeah.
And so for me, writing an RFP, which I had never done before, in 1 year, I wrote two and then helped edit a third one, which was built
Okay.
on our other two. And I learned so much. It was if anyone's done a report in any sense, think of and you could have RFPs from two different cities, even if it's the same service, be completely different in what they require for the technical
Mhm.
submission. But I learned so much and I learned to the funny story was we first sat in an information session just to learn about this RFP. Is it worth us putting our bid in? We sat in this information session that the city hosted, and it was all these security firms, and then it was myself and my colleague Kelly. We were the only women in like a group of 40 security firms that were interested in bidding, and we were like, "Hi, we're from the Ottawa Safety Council. We're a local charity in Ottawa, and road safety is our focus." And we were like aliens, like entering this world of public procurement. And these were it's really primarily security companies that kind of hold these contracts with cities that outsource. And so we are kind of like way outside of our league. We had both never written RFP. We divvied up the requirements, and we had one board member that was super supportive and had experience, helped coach us, and it was really great because she helped us think how to answer. She didn't do it for us. She just said, think of it this way. Think of
Mhm.
it this way. When you give your experience here, that's one contract, but then your references, you can reframe it so that your each contract, even if it's a year, is a different reference. And it's like
Yeah.
interesting. So having somebody that's done it professionally, advising is really helpful. And as somebody who had never done it, I think it's really important to have mentors out there, advisors who don't take over learning.
Mhm.
If a board member just, or if we outsourced it completely, we wouldn't have that internal knowledge of writing RFPs and how to do it. Um, you have to maintain certain things in house so that you build up that corporate knowledge internally, and then that's a power. And you learn each time. If you don't win, you learn why. Um, it was a very daunting process, but basically each step we didn't think we would actually win. But in my back of the head, I'm like, I'm only writing this to win. And so in
Mhm.
my head, I was like, I'm preparing like our board that we're going to open up a new business the minute we're okayed. And so that means we have to open up a 200 plus business within 3 months and deliver by the third month.
And from a, I guess, just that scale perspective, so how much bigger is the
Mhm.
Toronto service,
Yeah.
compared to what you're doing here in Ottawa?
For sure. So we started off as modest as you could start with the biggest city in the country. And so I wanted even so they divided Toronto into four sections. I wanted the east, which was closest to Ottawa. So that was like Scarborough, if anyone knows like GTA. We wanted the smallest section, very manageable, incremental growth. We didn't win that one. We won I think it was the second smallest, which was
Yeah.
still significant. And we're like, okay, but we wanted the other one. That one's significantly bigger than the other one. Okay, I guess we'll just do this. And then it had some challenges, some learning curves, but we want to start off small. And when it's funny because when procurement talked to me, they're like, how come you didn't bid on all four zones?
Okay.
Everyone's bidding all four zones. I'm like, we don't want all four zones. We would not succeed if we did that. And I don't think most people, you have to know your capacity. And we knew we were pushing it by just going like expanding outside our geographical comfort zone, right? We know the service, but a service cannot just be applied to different cities and be successful. You have to tailor it to the client and the city. But yeah, in that first year, so much learning was done. And by learning, I mean, oh my gosh, we had to fix things constantly under this pressure of a different client, of a new workforce, an office team who hadn't been doing this job. So training the new staff, you had 1 month, and then the next time that we met with them, they're meeting 200 guards who are adopted from the previous contract. So there's change management
Mhm.
nightmares right there of the turnover and the confusion and communication and people with anxiety because they didn't know what was happening and they wanted their job security. And it's a program that's very popular in that city. Every city kind of fights for the amount of city councilors in their neighborhood, every city
Mhm.
councilor. So it's a very publicly scrutinized program. We were the new kids coming in. We were seen as the outsiders.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because in future, I want municipalities, if they ever do procurements and they enter in social procurement, they should really talk about how they utilize that, how bringing on 3 contractors, hey, one of them is also a
Yep.
registered charity. Hey, this one has a mandate of this. So I think when we look at residents and their gripes over city services and things like that, I think sometimes there's like some really good feel good stories that people could share more,
Mhm.
that really show a city being innovative in a very local way and finding a way to provide an essential service that is delivered with the maximum amount of social impact.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think that's, so well said. The time where you're both writing the RFP, and you mentioned a number, I think, really critical things, right? Like
Mhm.
find a mentor,
Yes.
develop that internal capacity,
Yeah.
right? So you're writing this RFP, you're thinking about how to shape your narrative,
Yeah.
you're figuring out how to price
Yeah.
your bid. So
Absolutely.
some really important factors that you're working through. How did in those days at that moment, how did you think about risk? And for a lot of
Mhm.
organizations, and we, we're in the same community, we
Yeah,
know that risk is a really important issue
for sure.
that some boards in fact will say, that's too risky, we don't want to do it. So
Yeah.
how did you deal with that piece?
You don't want the extremes. You don't want the ones that ignore the idea of risk and you don't want them over risk, like risk aversive,
Mhm.
right? You need to be somewhere balanced and like it fluctuates as you go. When we're writing the RFP, at first I felt like there was no risk because there was no risk of us winning. It was more about learning. There were 4 steps to this RFP process in that city, and it was a challenge each time, and I didn't think we would, but it was always going in there with the idea of giving it our best, selling them the amazing stuff that we offer. Um, so each time we kind of progressed a little bit further, it got us thinking this is very possible. Okay, we need to augment our staffing. We need to be able to redirect where people's energy goes. We need to make sure that our current services are being supported by the right amount of staff. I had to do like a really quick review of our human resources before basically in that time frame before like we're about to be announced that we're about to win. And there were promotions, there were training, there was hiring internally, for yeah, it was a month of flurry. But I think with risk, I think every organization needs a risk matrix all the time. And basically, you need to check in on it maybe twice a year, unless there's major changes, good or bad, because
Mhm.
every good change could also have different risk. Every negative change could also open up risk, but also different opportunities. I think it's really important for anybody to have a risk matrix, have at least that one board member who will always ask questions that are really challenging. You need that, because I hopefully that it's coming from a really good place of good intention of, you know, by thinking of all the risks, we can find ways to mitigate it and know when it's not a risk anymore. And that's where you're actively engaging your risk registry. And a risk registry for those, it's a very simple document. It could be made very complicated, but you basically list out what are some key things that could happen that what is the probability of it happening? what would be the severity if it did happen? Would it shut down your organization or would it just be an inconvenience?
Mm.
Something like cybersecurity is a huge one, right? How do you mitigate it? You get the proper IT, you get the proper firewalls, but those are all things that are mitigated. But if you don't think about it, it's a huge risk. And so I feel like when people feel overwhelmed by the possibility of risk, list it all out, put them as list them all out as like just a stream of consciousness, reorganize them in terms of order of importance,
Mhm.
and then from the order of importance, or at the same time, it might be the probability and the severity. And to me, if I label them 1, 2, 3, and color code. I'm very into visuals, but anything that's red in my top 10, if it's red on probability, red on severity, they're my priority.
Mhm.
If they're red on probability, like it could happen, severity, it's not that severe, they're not my top priority. So for me, I check in on it like quarterly, but it's usually kind of always in the back of your mind, but you don't want it always just weighing you down because that would just not be productive for
Right.
anybody. But I think like as an ED, your job is to mitigate risk, to deliver on a mission, and to be accountable to a board and stakeholders. And so a risk registry is a very useful tool for managing your priorities.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And clearly it was worth taking the risk.
It was worth the
Yeah.
risk because the value, like there's value in so many different ways, right? There's the tangible monetary value, there's the number value. We can say now we've created these amount of jobs. We My goal is to also make our organization the best employer that people have had, and that's why people will stay with us. But there's a different value now. Suddenly, our organization is the the legitimacy, I think. Like I always like we're always biased
Mm.
for our own organization.
Mhm.
We do such great work. Okay, but now we're saying now we don't even have to say that. We can just be like, yeah, we are the crossing guard provider in these three cities. Oh yeah, we've been delivering this for 23 years here.
Mhm.
We've been doing this for 15 years here. So it's really interesting, and now we're having different conversations in the sector because now we're speaking on panels more. Now we're submitting abstracts. Now we're being um, like one thing is I don't have to do a news release anymore for road safety stuff. The media folks find me if they want me to talk
Mhm.
about something about road safety. I don't.
So thought leadership,
Yeah,
really.
and
Okay.
that was one of our when we had a strategic planning, that was one of the targets was for
Mhm.
us to be this hub of information and a thought leader in road safety. And by no means is my background is not road safety. My background was, studying criminology and working in nonprofits for like over a decade. But my passion has always been making a community healthier, right?
Mhm.
And I didn't know who the OSC was before they like knocked on my door. And then I like completely subscribed to it, but it also had so much more potential, and I saw that. And when I saw and understood our programs, I was like, we run like a social enterprise. Those words had not been used in our
Mhm.
organization before. It was like it changed how people saw it. And then it also, working in charities and nonprofits, you're always fundraising. You're always putting your passion and mission almost like it's running like parallel to this need to sustain yourself. How freeing it can be if you have successful service that's aligned with your mission, that generates revenue, and that you can operate smoothly so that you can then deliver your mission and the free services that we offer.
Mhm.
And so to me, I was like, this is fascinating. So I love studying our organization. And then opportunities came up, and I've always been one that if there's an opportunity there, take it, and figure it out.
What did that moment feel like when you got the news that you were the successful bidder?
It was wild, and I have an amazing team because everyone played a role. I might have been the direct role, my colleague and I, in writing the RFP and preparing that, working with a board member, but all my team had to shift. Like everyone, we had to basically say, we're not going to be available for the day-to-day support for the next month. So I need this manager to be the lead on this manager to take the lead on that, to start preparing. And so everyone played a role from like the summer student too. In the summer when we had to suddenly recruit so many people, they took on like extra work with us. But I remember just continuing each phase, getting the email. that we have successfully completed stage one. Stage two, there was a presentation involved where there were about 9 individuals from the city staff from that city on the call, and we had to present on our software. I didn't know the software, the day to day software for managing our guards. So I brought in my coordinator, a manager at the time, and together we presented and answered all the questions. And then we won that part, the technical part. Then we went to the financial part where they tried to go over every line and we tried to justify it all. And I think that's the thing with procurements. And I'm always wary of any potential service supplier is that you never want people to underbid because what I think is not a symbol of success is how accurate you are to your bid. And I think it's easy to get so competitive to lowball, but later on that'll cost everyone more in the end. And then it'll take away your credibility, your trustworthiness, I feel. And so we knew what our pricing was, we knew what our value was, and we had nothing to lose. If we didn't win that bid, we didn't win that bid. We
Yeah.
put up an effort, meh, and we move on and we look for other opportunities. It's very hard when your life source depends on it, right?
Mhm.
And we had to bid in Ottawa
Mhm.
after not ever having to bid, and we had to bid, and we were very anxious, but we were also very confident in our value. Our value was anyone can deliver a service. You have to have that extra value add of how are you different from others? Like, how are you not replicable from someone else? Like,
Mhm.
yeah, what do you do that's so unique? And I think what we do is we're not we're not just a business. We are actually a charity with
Mhm.
business systems and services that help maintain our ability to do what we do to reach more people. And like we look at our free services that we offer, our digital education that we, in COVID, it really got us to be very creative. The team put together these digital resources of everything that we were teaching in school is now gamified. And parents and teachers can just basically plug and play
Okay.
and keep their kids entertained for half an hour to 45 minutes and teaching road safety. And now that is being used across Canada. And so we have that in every province almost, I think, we have students registered using our digital road safety programs.
What I really love hearing you say is all these really important insights in terms of how you approach the RFP process,
Yeah.
and almost the sense that there was this graduated uh, buy-in and participation, so that, as you
Hmm.
mentioned, there were several stages. You worked through each stage. You brought in the appropriate team members
Yep.
to help you respond appropriately.
Yep.
How and you've touched on it a little bit through our conversation. Ottawa Safety Council is a charity.
Hmm.
So how important ultimately, is that fact
Hmm.
to being able to really establish that credibility
Yeah.
to deliver the service that you deliver so well?
Oh, I'm so proud of the fact that we're a registered charity because I feel we're also innovative with how we go about delivering our mandate and sustaining our organization and growing and creating more opportunity and a positive impact. But for me, it's very important, and it's funny that like it's very hard to get charitable status.
Mhm.
So once you have it, it's like a huge right. It establishes this credibility. You get very thoroughly audited. You have to maintain utmost accountability. Your board of directors need to really understand fiduciary responsibility and what the requirements and responsibilities are of a charity. I think for us, it was a very big part of where we come about our service because it guides how we deliver. So we're a registered charity with a mandate that's about creating safer roads, but we're also about creating positive social change and social impact. And so every decision has that in mind. From we partner with a lot of other charities and nonprofits that, for example, we worked with groups that help individuals who have autism, and we've worked with them and their caseworkers to hire actually a lot of individuals. Our career services center, for example, in the city of Brockville, where we started delivering 2 years ago, we love them. But most of our guards are from their career services. So whenever we talk about people with different abilities and opportunities and being a flexible and inclusive and supportive employer, like, oh my gosh, our team in Brockville is amazing. And we work so closely with our partners there. And the same thing in Ottawa and same thing in Toronto. Even our gifts that we give the guards, we procure from a nonprofit that is about creating gifts so that it helps sustain their organization. So in Ottawa, we bought these great, beautiful handmade ornaments from Owl Cafe. And Owl Cafe provides programs and services for adults with autism. And it's such a great social enterprise and a coffee place. Like, why just go to a standard, coffee place when you can go to a very community based, social focused organization and then get great gifts as we go into this holiday season. And so every decision we kind of factor that in. And I've primarily worked in charities and public sector, and I just can't even see another way except for how do we benefit others more? Like, what can we do? And then also find like another way that it has more benefits. I don't know. I feel like that's just how I work. And I've gotten the privilege to be able to do this at the OSC.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And if we think about social enterprises being first and foremost mission driven,
Mhm.
and so the way you're describing both your philosophy and the operations of the
Yeah.
Safety Council, and having this really interlayered set of both values and also ways that you express that value in
Yep.
terms of delivering additional benefits and,
Yeah.
and greater benefit to the
Yeah.
community. Um, we should talk about Brockville.
Sure.
And I think that it's part of this amazing story. So after Toronto came something else.
Because, yeah, and this is a story about resilience, I would say, because our organization tried with Brockville a few years ago. I think it was like their RFP was 3 years. It got cut short because that business went bankrupt. And that organization, um, they provided services to 3 cities. And we had tried before with Brockville. We didn't win the bid. We were just off by, a margin. And
Pricing,
yeah, just on
simply
pricing.
pricing.
Yeah,
Okay.
which is unfortunate because I feel if one thing I would ask decision makers, municipalities, when they're working on the procurement team and with different departments, when you're designing um, when you're designing the marking scheme, the calculations, there has to be an element that is valuable that's about the community. And when you are looking for only the cheapest, the bottom line, just like in everyday products, you're going to get that. You're not going to get this next level of concierge services, right? So there's a certain extent that there has to be a value and um, placed on that social impact. And you're seeing it come up more in RFPs when I've looked at them now, that there is an element like social enterprises mentioned, and you have to detail how your revenue helps benefit the community, what services you offer that benefit the community, and like a history of demonstrating that. But Brockville was very neat. So they came up. We didn't even know that that was on the radar because it wasn't. Their contract ended abruptly with their previous supplier, as well as 2 other cities, and they reached out to us. So we didn't actually know about it. They reached out to us to let us know it was available and to make a bid. So we used some of our materials. We have just undergone 3 months of heavy procurement and RFP processes with 2 major cities, and getting everything. It was like probably in May, and basically by the end of May, May 30th, I believe I recorded it. A council meeting said that we won, and we knew that June 1st we had to have all of our job postings out and everything, and just go find an office, do all of that. So it wasn't in our mindset to do one more RFP, even if it wasn't one that was like materially gonna, make a huge change. For us, Brockville is our close neighbor. I have staff that live out there before, so they would do the commute every few days. So it wasn't so far fetched. They were very open to us like submitting something. So we're like, let's try. It was the same mindset of let's try, and if it doesn't happen, not that's unfortunate for this moment, but we'll say later on, another time.
Mm.
We ended up winning that one, and that was a very short turnaround in the RFP process. And then we basically met 20 new staff in like a month after, and they were the sweetest group. And we met with the city council there, met with the local police. They were very welcoming of us, very much that small town vibe. But like every city, they still have issues with aggressive drivers, speeding drivers,
Mhm.
putting people at risk. And so every community is different, but every community is similar. And for us, it was retaining like 95% of the same workforce. We had to hire for a few openings that became open, and then we delivered. And our goal was to just always make sure that our guards felt valued, and through various appreciation events and things like that. But we love working with the city of Brockville.
This is such a phenomenal story,
Yeah.
and congratulations. The Ottawa Safety Council
Yeah.
is doing amazing
Yeah.
things. I think it's an organization that is really blazing a trail for other nonprofits and
Yeah.
charities, and really saying that you too can do this.
Yeah.
That you can look outside your typical, say, your traditional market,
Yeah.
your traditional geography, and
Absolutely.
you can do it. What
Absolutely.
what comes next?
Ooh, I think it's right now we're at that. It takes a few years to
Mhm.
stabilize and to get to that sweet spot when you finally start seeing the benefits of all that intense work.
Mhm.
And we are in that very nice spot right now. Our service levels are super high in all of our cities. Our retention is super high. Our recruitment is really great, and my teams are all like running really smoothly. And occasionally we get wrenches thrown at us, and we deal with it. But now it's kind of it's continuing. It's always going to be a cycle, right? So no contract is indefinite. We always, as an organization, have to look at ways to reduce our vulnerability. And I think one of the things that would be my focus as any ED is making sure the scope still maintains a proper scope. I think it's very easy when you have a lot of great ideas, a lot of innovation and different kind of hot topics out there in the community. But I think our strength is that we have a couple things, and I reduced the amount of programs that we do. Like when I started, it was probably like two main programs, our crossing our program in Ottawa, our motorcycle program, and then a lot of little small ones
Mm.
that took up a lot of resources but didn't have much benefit, nor revenue. So it just kind of drained the organization. So what I want to do is streamline us. Here are our three offerings: our crossing guard services that we do really well, our motorcycle program that we do really well, and our new digital education program, which is going to be free. And that is where we channel all of the charitable education so that it is accessible to everyone with access to computer, right? And we also have paper versions of everything too. So those are our three areas I wanted us to focus on: charitable and two business ventures that help support the charitable. Um, and then and then we expand what we do well, and we look at what is scalable, right? Our motorcycle program is really based on the strength of our volunteers,
Mhm.
these individuals who have been with us for decades. It's very hard to scale that.
Yeah.
And there's other cities that deliver different programs. There's always choices even within our city. That program was harder to scale. The crossing our program, there was so much. We did like a needs assessment. We got more involved in the forums that discuss school zone safety. We realized that area has a lot of room to scale, and it's a program we're already doing really well.
Mhm.
And so my role as an AD is to bring that feedback to a board and sell it to my staff too, right? My team, because expanding means everyone's life is going to get harder, and you won't have the buy-in until you have people seeing that that's possible, seeing the benefit, and seeing how they play a role in it. And then it's right now we're in that very good spot. However, every year or so, we're going to have to deal with a contract ending. We're going to have to do the whole process again. And in our ideal world, they're never on the same year, because that one year, 2023, was just like insane.
Yeah.
All three RFPs all in one year. And now we have them all staggered. So at least we're prepared. And we can't ever understand decision makers' decisions behind the scenes, because they will maybe just look at it could be, you know, a very minimal amount cost difference, but that could be the make or break. And that could be whether or not a group that is a um, large business that, doesn't necessarily have a community social impact wins it. So for that 2,000, let's just say, for that $2,000 difference, which I have seen, um, we're going to go with that company that's not from this area and has no mandate to provide social impact and benefit over a local charity or a charity that has a mandate to deliver free services
Mhm.
and educational component, one quarter of the four things that make our road safer. So engineering, education, enforcement, and engagement. And we
Mhm.
do education and engagement. So it boggles my mind if decision makers are just looking at dollars without looking at social impact and value. And that's where I think in our world of social impact and social enterprise, we have to find a way to make that so that is a norm now. That's a criteria that's super important that procurement must factor in is the social value.
Mhm. Jamie, the future looks bright, and it's so lovely to speak with you. You bring just I think an amazing perspective as the executive director of a charity that is running social enterprises, and how you've woven a social enterprise model into that charitable model. Been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, Jamie. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, and I'm so excited to hear the other podcasts and connect more with individuals in this sector.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
This is Michael Murr with CSED. I'd like to thank the City of Ottawa for its financial support of our podcast series.